Right now, joining us to share their thoughts on the dynamics at play amongst members of the Tripartite Alliance are former COSATU leader himself and ANC stalwart Mufamadi and political analyst Professor Lesiba Teffo. Let's get your views also tonight. 072-110-5584. Is COSATU still the best vehicle to advance the working class struggles? Gentlemen, good evening and thank you very much for your time and for joining us tonight here on In Focus. Dr. Mufamadi, let's begin with you. I mean, when we trace back to the times when COSATU was formulated, to the formation of this Tripartite Alliance and the relationship that then has existed up until this point. Today we are hearing of a COSATU that is warning the governing ANC of a possible no support of any of their presidential candidates come the 2024 election. What is different today? What has changed? Is there something that has changed in this relationship? Are the conditions different today than years ago when COSATU was formed?
Well, I think the important thing to understand is that it took those of us who are foundation members of COSATU 4 years of unity talks from 1981 to 1985 amongst ourselves as trade unionists to ultimately form COSATU. We were driven then by the democratic idealism. In other words, the conviction that another world is possible. And indeed, the formation of COSATU actualized a better organized labor in the country, a worthy ally of other formations that were in the trenches of struggle, such as the United Democratic Front, the ANC that was banned at the time, the South African Communist Party, and SACTU. So 1994 was not an accident. It was an outcome of this all-round struggle that was waged by various formations, including COSATU.
Did the COSATU of then lose its way in getting into this marriage, others saying of inconvenience with the ANC?
Well, if COSATU was wrong in what it did, then 1994 would not have happened. 1994 happened. We are now about 28 years into the new dispensation. There is a discrepancy between expectation and experience. And that is not a peculiarity of South Africa. If you have some familiarity with the historiography of processes of change around the world, you will know that human effort does not always produce uninterrupted progression. So we are finding ourselves in that situation where, as a result of many challenges, both subjective and objective, the momentum of progressive change in the country is ebbing. The challenge is for those who brought about change to regroup and find new ways of navigating the way forward. Yeah. And as I say, this is not a peculiarity of our situation. There is absolutely no reason to be despondent. We've been here before. If one looks at the longevity of the struggle for change in South Africa.
Yeah. Prof Teffo, let's bring you in here. It's not a peculiarity. The alliance has been here before, or at least the confederation has been here before. The dynamic that we are seeing playing out right now is simply a function of a poorly managed progression process that could easily be fixed. Prof, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, the question is?
I'm saying, how do you feel about that analysis that says what we are seeing in the dynamic that's playing out between the ANC and COSATU is just a function of a poorly managed progression process?
Yeah, indeed, it isn't peculiar, given the analysis made so far. However, was peculiar and was peculiar then, to date, and even later until the divorce. I have not come across any literature or experience that attests to Labour being in co-governance with the ruling party. I'm still to come across with that. And that is the source of the problem. And we have said it many a times that it was appropriate, necessary, and convenient prior to 1994. But after 1994, there was absolutely no need for COSATU to remain, or the ANC to work together in the manner they did. And that's really what brought them where they are, that they are dysfunctional to a point where, in my view, there is no redemption. Yeah. Because it had lost sight of the fact that it was supposed to be about labor, about the laborers and their interests. It became a quasi-political party in governance, seeking to acquire positions at the level of government and state-owned enterprises. Evidence to that effect abound. Unless and until you are one of them, you cannot and you will not be appointed in certain positions. I have in mind here Jane Naidu, I have in mind here Shilowa, I have Tula Zingiswa, I have Mdladlana, I have Madisha, all of them. And I'm listening to Lady Losi speaking today. I say, by the way, this is a prospective minister come 2024 should the ANC win the election. So let them be honest and frank enough. Where did it go wrong? To remain in co-governance with the ruling party. And there's no way. They've lost support. They've lost credibility. And unless they shake off that perception, they will continue to find themselves withering and whispering in the wilderness until there is no whisper at all.
So you are in agreement, in a sense, with Mr. Mufamadi when he says that if the alliance did not happen, 94 would not have happened. So the union, up till that point, was correct in terms of reaching 94. What is
94 would have happened with or without the ANC. Let's not lie to the people of South Africa. It would have happened with or without COSATU. Right? Let's be clear about that. However, the two organizations played a major role. But I don't want to adulterate the role of other organizations, especially of the people inside, especially of the UDF, of which Bamsanda was part of. Let's give credit where it is due. We all played a part. They should have just accepted. Now that we have attained what we desired and worked hard for, let's go the separate ways. They wouldn't be where they are today. You have the SACP. Come 2024, it is the same COSATU people who will be telling you and I, let's vote for the ANC. Come December 2022, they are going to an election conference. The same guys who are shouting at the top of their voices, they would be joining factions in order to advance the interests of the party rather than the interests of the workers or of the nation.
Let's take a break and take your thoughts. 072-110-5584. And that is the name of Mufamadi, ANC stalwart, former member and founder as well himself of COSATU. Will respond to those issues, and we will take your thoughts as well tonight. In Focus continues shortly. Back with you tonight on In Focus. Thanks for staying on, and our conversation continues. We are still with former COSATU leader and ANC stalwart, Mufamadi, and political analyst, Professor Lesiba Teffo, and taking your thoughts, 072-110-5584. Now, already mentioned that when COSATU was formed in 1985 and launched, the current guest we have, Mufamadi, was elected as Assistant General Secretary at his inaugural rally. He operated underground for much of the year of 1986, but then openly resumed his work despite the continuing state of emergency. He again says, had that alliance not been in existence, 1994 would not have happened. Professor Teffo argues that the Mufamadi, that 94 would have happened with or without the alliance of the ANC and COSATU. And COSATU should have admitted after 94 that whatever we were trying to do together, we've now achieved. It's time to part ways. Otherwise, if that did happen, we wouldn't find ourselves today in a situation where Zingiswa Losi is warning of the danger of creating a permanent class of the unemployed. One is asking, how could that possibly even get there with COSATU being around? People should have won a long time ago.
Maybe let's go back a little bit, Mr. Mdluli. When I said that 1994 would not have happened without the ANC and its allies, I was not suggesting that the struggle for change was the sole province of the ANC-led alliance. However, I was saying that if you look at formations like COSATU, the United Democratic Front, those of us who were members thereof knew that they were an organic outgrowth of the broad struggle for change in the country. That struggle was not leaderless. The ANC led that struggle for change. That is why the masses of the people gave it the mandate to take us beyond to 1994 and beyond. Now, Professor says he has not read any literature which talks about, say, post-colonial, post-independent coalition or alliance between organized labor and political organizations. I can share that literature with him because, you know, there are lived experiences of co-determination in jurisdictions such as Germany, alliance electoral pacts between the Labour Party and organized labor in Britain, for instance. There are intermittent alliances and coalitions that get formed by organized labor and parties that are seen by organized labor not necessarily to be parties of working people, but seen as parties that are responsive to the interests of organized labor. But that responsiveness is not something that comes automatically. It's something that comes in the trenches of struggle. So I am saying that it is too mechanical an approach to say that you go into the trenches together fighting for change, and when some breakthrough has been made, you think that you have arrived. Actually, a breakthrough like the one we experienced in 1994 was both a point of arrival but also a point of departure. And all those who worked together to bring about 1994 would do themselves a great favor if they don't then abandon the trenches of struggle. And that is the point I was making when I said there is absolutely no reason to be despondent, because we could have been despondent before 1994, and 1994 would not have happened. And I'm talking about all of us who were fighting for this change that has occurred.
So if these pacts, as you put it, do work in other worlds, in the United Kingdom and everywhere else that happened within alliance partners, why is it that 28 years on after 1994, we are talking of a danger of a permanent class of unemployed being warned by COSATU? How could this happen under the watch of COSATU? Is this the COSATU that you formed that would be asleep for 28 years and come today and say, we are warning you that we are creating a danger of a permanent class of unemployed?
But to say COSATU was asleep for the 28 years is something of a hyperbole. The fact of the matter is that the process of transforming a country, it's a permanent work in progress. Along the way, you remake your political mentality. Along the way, you find novel ways of tackling challenges that you may well have not foreseen at all in the earlier periods. And that is, as I say, how society moves from one stage of development to the next.
Is COSATU then able to develop, as you put it, a more coherent roadmap to addressing the workers' issues while still in this marriage, or should they do that outside of this marriage?
Well, the choice is theirs, but the responsibility they have is to acquire new knowledge that is demanded by the new situation to continue to drive the change process. I think all of us by now ought to be aware that progressive change process is a knowledge-intensive process, and we have a responsibility to steep ourselves into the culture of lifelong learning. I think Professor can deliver a very good lecture to us about the importance of lifelong learning. The tactics and strategies that we used to organize workers and the civil realm in general were not tactics and skills that we were born with. We learned, we acquired those skills. We must acquire the new skills that are necessary for managing change.
Yeah. The process of managing change, Prof, it's a lifelong learning experience. And maybe what is required from COSATU today is to learn new skills of managing change and dealing with the worker issues. Care to give us some insights into that?
Yes, indeed. I'll get to lifelong learning. I think that Mufamadi and I are not at variance. We are agreed. Maybe is the analysis or the terminology used. I stick to the fact that had they not gone into co-governance with the ruling party, we wouldn't be where we are. Had they formed a workers' party, a labor party, as it is the case, that's the literature I'm familiar with. And I don't want to conflate the two theories. Right? Zingiswa Losi in Poland led workers' union. But when he assumed the mantle of power, he didn't go with the party. The labor movement continued. Same applies to Frederick Chiluba in Zambia, right? And now, let's leave that. But I don't think we are very much at variance. It's just the theories and the approach to it. The bottom line is that you cannot go in because co-governance as labor with. However, your interests can be taken care of. Maybe you can even deploy your own as a party, Workers' Party or Socialist Party, as Ivan Jim tried. Now, lifelong learning, indeed, that's where the COSATU should pause and reflect as to how it takes itself forward. This marriage won't work. It hasn't worked in the past 28 years. It has just been a vehicle for acquiring at least executive positions, either in government, national, provincial, local, and in-state enterprises. There is sufficient evidence to that effect. However, they can shake that off and try to look at the interests of the worker within the rubric or the realm of lifelong learning. Walk away and concentrate and focus on the interests of the workers. Look, numerically, they are weakened. In terms of relevance and integrity, right? They are almost like a polecat. The name COSATU people are averse to. Why? But yes, we say they can still, try something else and still play a role and still contribute to the interests of the ANC of the country. But let them pretend, not pretend otherwise, that for as long as it is perceived as a vehicle for self-enrichment, riding on the back of COSATU, of the ANC, they will never enjoy the respect that they think they enjoyed yesteryear, especially pre-1994. But people, by the way, are much wiser today than they were yesterday. People eat pap and flesh, bread and butter, not slogans.
Dr. Mufamadi, when you established the organization and you say it was a process of 4 years of talks amongst labor unions right up until 1985 when the party was formed, was the intention to be in government positions? Was that the thing? That seems to be the indication now, at least today, of some of the prominent members that the Prof has already mentioned that ended up in some kind of ministerial positions.
No. You see, the professor was giving us the example of Zingiswa Losi, and I don't want us to lose that. I will implore him to educate us about the change and transformations that were brought by Zingiswa Losi in Poland.
Yeah. You want me to come in there?
Yeah, you can come in, Prof.
Oh, yes, no doubt. I looked up to him, and I also had a quasi-relationship with Poland, given that John Paul II came from that part of the world, and they came together almost at the same time. And both of them made a major difference in a communist country that they managed to realign in a sense. And indeed, he made a difference. There's no question about that. I don't want to detract from the essence of what we are discussing. Zingiswa Losi came from the trade union movement with immense support and made a difference in the life of many Polish people. That I concede. I'm not sure about Frederick Chiluba, but I'm saying to the extent possible, let's not use compromise workers' interests in the pursuit of political office.
What is the content of the difference that was made by Zingiswa Losi?
What is the content?
The
content
of the difference that was made by Zingiswa Losi.
The content or the context?
The content.
The content. If you want to be ideological, be it, and I'm not I'm a realist. I am a realist.
No.
Mufamadi, help us. What is in your view then? What is different about what happened or what is similar about what happened in Poland and what is happening between COSATU and the ANC?
Well, the point that I think I've been making is that, you see, the alliances that were built before 1994 are the alliances that you find in other situations where people came together to fight for freedom. Multi-party formations which exist in the lead up to independence, But also post-independence, one of the quintessential tasks of national movements is to build national unity. Now, I don't understand why Professor thinks that organized labor has the possibility of bringing about meaningful change working alone without other class formations that are known classically to be allies of working people. I don't know what he based it.
Yeah, maybe let me just put
Professor, I'm going to allow you to respond to that in a moment. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll wrap up the conversation. Allow the professor to respond to that and take some of your thoughts as well. 072-110-5584. Back with you, former leader of COSATU and ANC stalwart Mufamadi, as well as political analyst Professor Lesiba Teffo, still with us, and some of your thoughts coming through. We'll read those messages in a moment, but let's give the Prof an opportunity to respond. Prof, the question put to you is, why do you believe that solidarity with other formations is not necessarily a good method to use, to be used at least by trade unions in the change and transformation pursuit?
That's not exactly what I am not saying, lest I get distorted. But I want to get off this one by saying the examples of the theories advanced by Tate Mufamadi might have held sway in other spaces, but certainly not in the Republic of South Africa post-1994. That experiment failed, and failed dismally.
Now, the solidarity that for example, you're talking about broad solidarity of the Polish trade union movement in the 80s. It itself was quite a broad solidarity. I mean, with civil society, with other agents of social change. Why would you say that kind of method is not permissible in South Africa? It's just purely because of what you're saying, the compromised position of labor leaders taking positions in government?
There is nothing wrong in moving from labor into government, but don't pretend otherwise. I want, for me, keep that distinction, especially if you are a South African, because it did not work for us. The people have been betrayed. The people lost jobs because their interests were not taken care of by political leaders who ultimately were in cahoots with corporate and the leadership of corporate in order to advance personal interests. I can't shy away from that one. Hence, they've lost credibility and they've lost support, and they continue to lose support. If they work together in solidarity, in harmony, in collaboration with others, so be it. But if it is in the name of labor, let the interests of the laborers be in the forefront.
Dr. Mufamadi, I'll ask that question again. I mean, is it envisaged that this is what would happen? You will continue to be in the trade union movement and hold a position in government, because it's seemingly this is what the Prof is contending with.
No. I think we are inflating different themes that are legitimate, but maybe they don't belong to tonight's discussion. Let's look at what is happening in the real world of our current South Africa. You should be aware that people from different backgrounds, different political parties, non-governmental organizations, including COSATU, have been coming together to organize themselves into what they call a Defend Democracy campaign. You are aware of that?
Yes.
Now, yeah, so I am saying that is what is required.
Yeah.
You require a national conversation,
yeah,
which says in what sense of change should this, our country, be a changed society?
Yeah.
That is a very important discussion which we should be having. I'm saying in the real world, away from the ivory tower.
Yes.
Because you see, you are looking at the ANC and you think that the ANC is not capable of producing people who are committed to real change as it was envisioned before. That is why I thought that this process by which people are conducting introspection, not people just in the ANC or just in COSATU, people in the Black Consciousness Movement, people in other political parties are coming together to say, what do we do about our situation? Okay. By the way, there are lessons also even in Poland, which I didn't hear the professor talking about.
In that spirit of introspection, I want you to help us with this particular question. How did public sector workers, from what we are hearing today, end up feeling exploited in the land of a tripartite alliance? How did that happen?
You know, you have to address that question in tandem with how did the generality of the South African public come to feel that the state system, including the public servants that we are talking about, how did the generality of the public feel that the state system is not touching their lives in the way that was promised? So I'm saying that public servants are not immune from this process of having to ask themselves as well, have we played our own role in helping to change this new South Africa into a better place? Okay. It's not a binary of evil people versus good people, because if you come at it that way, you will be misleading yourself.
So are you not willing to concede today that what could have happened here is that tripartite alliance leaders entered mainstream politics while trade unions slipped into a decline? And this is why we are where we are today. And to correct it, we would need to change that.
No, but I did not dispute the fact that we are going through a moment of decadence. But I did say that decadence, we are not strangers to decadence. That is why it took us such a long time before we got to 1994. There were moments when there were detours, and we have had to address those detours, and by so doing we managed to take the struggle to greater heights. All I am saying is that we are not going to solve this problem by walking away from each other. It's either we move forward together or we perish together. That's all I am saying.
Prof, the winner takes all approach is not going to work. We've got to move together here. I mean, the skirmishes that we are seeing happening today in Midrand, are these likely to be a permanent feature, or are these theatrics, as others are saying, bargaining for positions?
I think in the main, that Mufamadi and I are agreed. In the main, I can see his pain, and his pain is my pain. We want to save the country. And as a patriot, I don't want to save a political party. I want to save a country. There are many formations, there are many organizations who have come to accept that. As Martin Luther King said, there comes a time in the affairs of men when silence is betrayal, when silence is collusion, and when silence is not an option. I'm one of those who have been campaigning for the change of the Electoral Act in speech and in publications. And I can submit even today, we can talk as much as we please. We are not going to change South Africa until we change the Electoral Act that based on meritocracy, people are appointed into office. It's not about the ANC. By the way, the ANC is immensely endowed with talent. But many of us have been elbowed out, shifted out, maligned, and so on. But I'm saying, yes, in the spirit in which Dr. Mufamadi is expressing himself, we have reached a stage where we must pull together, lest we perish together as fools.
I appreciate you both for coming on, and thank you very much for your time. That is Sidney Mufamadi and Professor Lesiba Teffo. Let's look at WhatsApp now, what you've been saying to this conversation tonight in terms of what the submissions have been so far. Paul B saying, Prof is not in touch with history and geopolitical affairs, but also he is deliberately ignoring that the tripartite alliance remains relevant in the post-democratic dispensation, leaves much to be desired. I would accept an analysis that issues of succession and development may have been dealt with the alliance, not that it had no place in post-democratic South Africa. Anonymous saying, I agree with Prof. There was no need for COSATU to be aligned to the ANC post-1994. Hence, they claim to fight for workers against the ANC-led government. At the same time, they vouch for the ANC. COSATU leaders are power-hungry. Come 2024, we're going to liberate ourselves by dropping the ANC to minus 50%. Anonymous, appreciate your thoughts today.